Hello and welcome back to another Reaconteur video, and in today's video I'm going over more bad Deepwoken suggestions. Now before we get into it, make sure to subscribe since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. And along with that, I'm live on Twitch playing hardcore Minecraft right now, so come watch me over there if you just want to talk or have fun. Anyway, before we get into it real quick, some people were annoyed that I went over their bad suggestions in the last video, so what more than to find more angry people and just make another one, right? But realistically, if you don't want scrutiny, then maybe don't make a bad suggestion, or I don't know, just don't make suggestions, right? If you're unable to take scrutiny from people, then don't put your opinions out there for people to publicly rate, you know? It's just not something you need to do. With that being said, let's get straight into it. All right, this one is Familiar Heretics Armor Sucks, which is the Hallowtide exclusive armor. Here's how to fix it. First of all, remove the broken femur after my rune runs out. Instead, we will get inflicted with an effect called Curse of Ardor, which will last 20 seconds and will stop us from regenning ether naturally, and reduces engage's ether regen by 90%. Number can be tweaked. Alright, this isn't a good idea for a lot of reasons, because the ability that it gives you is runes, which is from Rogue Lineage, but it has a 1.5x damage multiplier and then infinite ether for the time when it's active, and then the downside is that after using it, you are super slowed down. Which, yeah, that's a bad downside, but like, for what it gives you, it kind of has to be a huge downside, because giving you any less than a huge downslide would be absolutely broken, especially because this is a Hallowtide exclusive armor. Like, generally people use these for cosplay rather than for actual usage, even though some of them are good, but I don't think they should make something seasonal super good, because obviously the best stuff in the game shouldn't be seasonal, which is why Hallowtide never has the best stuff in the game for longer than Hallowtide goes on, because everything eventually gets nerfed. This next one, Attunement Imbues are a set of mantras that buff your M1s by allowing them to proc status effects on hit. While active, they passively drain ether. You need high tempo to keep them active, else it will start actually draining your ether if mismanaged. Now, Fire and Blue, it would just, it would give you burns, explosions, apply Shadow Burn with Twisted Puppets, increase ether cost with Twisted Puppets. Thunder Imbue would apply Shock on M1s. Gale Imbue would apply Winded on M1s and Aftercuts if you have the talent. Frost Imbue would apply Chill on M1s and apply Crystal, only one Crystal maximum, and you still need mantras to stack them up. Now, Shadow Imbue would steal ether on M1s, apply Shadow Burn, increased ether cost to offset this. Metal Imbue, I'm not sure how, if we would allow metal rods on M1, which that would be broken, so let's maybe not do that, especially when there's a weapon that already does that. It should be its own synergized thing. Now, with that being said, I don't think this is a great idea. It's not the worst idea I've seen. Like, in fact, Deepwoken actually used to have something like this in testing, because there used to be like mantras. There used to be things that would let you imbue your attunement onto your weapon. Like, you used to be able to put fire on your sword and stuff like that, but that was removed from testing because, first of all, enchants exist, which makes this redundant. And even if it weren't redundant, imagine having like Gale and then having like basically just aftercut M1s, which is crazy, especially when like the curve blade exists. But then on top of having those like aftercut M1s, you also just like go multi-attunement and you could just put like metal rods on your M1s. So yeah, this is kind of broken, so let's maybe not do that. It could maybe be an oath or something like that, but it definitely shouldn't be something that's like done through an attunement path or done through mantras, because that would just be really broken. This next one I'm going over because I saw it had a lot of X's, but I don't think it's the worst thing ever. Maybe the movesets are broken, so we'll see what this is. Hear me out. What if the max trial was now an actual boss fight? You can still probably tear through it at max, but not so annoying or pathetic as a bullet sponge and much more lore friendly. So this would be the Greater Enforcer, which would have 15,000 health and 7,500 extra per player. So it would have a regular swing, it would have a faster swing, it would have a critical, which is a guaranteed guard break, which is just the regular critical, except it seems like it winds up longer. It would feint, it would fake out. Greater Enforcer will do a swing from above before feinting a left swing and doing an undodgeable kick. So it would be a double fake out. So he'd swing from above, feint, left swing, and then kick. What? Whatever, dude. And then the Space Pull, which it normally has, Lash Out. Greater Enforcer will do an extremely powerful swing with a longer windup, guard breaking and ragdolling anyone who is hit. Okay, that's kind of whatever. Cheap Shot. Greater Enforcer will quickly rise up its knee to hit the player, doing little damage but coming out very fast. And then Vacuum Pull. Greater Enforcer will start charging up a pull for 5 seconds. This will cancel if it is hit. If it's not canceled, Greater Enforcer will pull all players in the arena towards them and slam them with their weapon, doing large damage. Only used if Space Pull is used and fails to find a target / fails to pull in the target. And then he gave it some passives. Rage. Upon reaching 10% HP, Greater Enforcer will discard its axe and charge at the target before unleashing many different punches. Basically, it becomes a heavily armored Squibbo. Passives and talents, monster armor, greater enforcer has 25% physical resistance, because apparently 50% is too high for this quick drop PvEs. No, I think 58% is just kind of a crazy number for resistance. Piercing blow. Any attacks from the greater enforcer that guard break an enemy ignore all armor resistances. That's an insane talent. Armor piercer. Greater enforcer has 40% innate pen and 20% chip on all attacks. When, by the way, he gave it like 2 fake out moves and 1 move that might be unreactable. Even if it does a little bit of damage, that's still gonna throw off your rhythm. That's whatever. Thorn guard. Greater enforcer takes 20% damage from Providence Thorn procs. That's not that bad. Otherworldly Aegis. Greater enforcer has 20% oath and elemental armor. Last resort. Greater enforcer gains a 20% damage boost below 20% HP. Which, by the way, 20% HP for this thing is still 3000 health. I know that's only 2 Sharkos, but it's whatever. Unbreakable. Greater enforcer is stunned for less time when posture broken and armor broken / staggered. And the loot, it would drop a chest with deep gems, gear, a 60% chance for a relic, and a 1% chance to have a random Heart of Enmity drop. All items in the chest will always be at least 1 star. Now, generally, the reason why people they suggest stuff like this is because, I mean, this was supposed to be the Vow of Iron enforcer trial, because this is supposed to be an exclusive boss they submitted. And honestly, it's just not a good idea to suggest things for a part of the game that's not out yet, right? Like, you shouldn't be suggesting, hey, they should do this for Vow of Iron when you haven't even played it yet, right? Like, realistically, that shouldn't be happening. Along with that, this would just kind of be miserable. Like, imagine you just have to leave the depths, or you went down to the depths temporarily, and every time you leave, you have to fight a boss. Like, the reason why Heart of Enmity is the way it is because it's optional, because nobody would want to do Heart of Enmity every time. That would actually suck. So it's a very good thing that this wouldn't have to be in the game. But, you know, I'm sure that the devs already have, like, a plan for Vow of Iron, right? But also 30,000 HP is kind of crazy for a boss that you expect us to fight every time we leave the depths. So I'm assuming that they're going to do something for it, but I don't think it's going to be nearly this strong, and I don't think it's going to be just an upgraded enforcer, hopefully. But realistically, it might be, given the Deepwoken developers' track record, to say the least. This next one is a Silent Heart Path rework. Now, this one actually has a pretty decent amount of X's and stars. There's 75 stars and 97 X's on this. So some people like it, some people don't. So let's see. So obligatory X-Bam post because it's Silent Heart, obviously. Nobody likes Silent Heart except for Silent Heart people. With that being said, compare old versus new Silent Heart. Ever since the current rework, it just feels like an oath meant to be used with stat sticks, and it provides no actual viability or sustain. I don't think it provided sustain before, but, you know. The rework. All prerequisites are the same, but only the following talents are obtainable on all paths. Ankle Cutter, by default, it no longer slows enemies, read until the end. Flow State, True Vantage, Unmatched Dexterity. Manikati, screw your Cascade, although it does nothing until you pick a path. Dread Stacks would be renamed to Vengeance Stacks for the new paths. For each proc, you only get plus 5% mantra resistance by default. When unlocking the Oath or joining a server, if you already have the Oath, you are given a talent hand that has 3 paths. The Pursuiter, meant for ganks and catching track stars. The Brute, meant for 1v1s focusing on sustain and close to mid-range combat. And the Contrarian, a more boss raid focused path, although focusing more on AoE than anti-track star. Read more in the reply to understand how each of these work. Alright, so for the Pursuiter, Manikati would now slash your air target twice, slowing them greatly in the process. Reaconteur now has more horizontal range. Ankle Cutter now also greatly reduces your enemy's speed when landed. Vengeful Pursuit now auto-tracks anytime as long as its target is at least near the ground, no longer needing them to face backwards. That's stupid. Ardor Scream slows down targets, Rhythm shows their HP percent, and Tacit would make their mantras deal 25% less damage to you while in range. But if you're invisible, then Tacit won't do this? So yeah, let me crouch down and get into my Tacit and eat a hit for 25% less damage when I could also just not do that. That one's just kind of trash. Like, I feel like Tacit making their mantras deal less damage while in the range specifically, but then if you're invisible and they send out a ranged mantra, it does the same damage. That's just not good. Along with that, you gain Mayhem's medium variant for all weapons, and your speed is scaled by your weapon's swing speed, and you gain Relentless Hunt speed, also scaled by weapon swing speed. Now for the Brute, the more vengeance stacks you have, the more silence your opponents will get, and it has a cooldown once every 4, 5, or 6 hits based on heavy, medium, or light, with a maximum of 5 seconds at 5 stacks. Vengeance stacks also decrease your Silent Heart's ability cooldown slightly. Manikari slashes 7 times in a faster manner than current Cascade and deals 10 damage per hit in Oath damage, and it is not affected by damage multipliers. That's a lot of damage though. 70 damage for Manikari is insane. Gain Mayhem's heavy variant for all weapons, speed scaled by weapon swing speed. And then finally, the Contrarian. Manikari, when available, now slashes everyone in a certain radius instead of locking onto one person. It also hits faster depending on how close the enemy is to you. The more combat tags you have, the less damage you take from mantras, 6% per combat tag, and this talent does not work if you have no holds barred or only in one combat tag. Landing any Silent Heart move grants you 10% of the damage you dealt back in temp HP. That could be crazy, actually. That might be insane. Ankle Cutter's AoE is increased by x2 if the user is in +2 combat tags, and your damage also scales with how many combat tags you have. Capped at 5 combat tags for plus 30%. Merciless Blade now grips in 2 seconds instead of 2.25. That really doesn't even matter. Your weapon gets an innate wild effect, dealing 15% of the end damage. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this isn't that bad. Like, as far as things go, some of it doesn't make sense. Like the murmurs thing, it doesn't make sense. Why would the Dreadstar buff your murmurs? It just wouldn't, so that's also not needed. And also Tacit would just be garbage. And doubling the range, like some of these buffs are way too much, right? I think it should all be toned down as far as numbers go if they were to add something like this. But I think this is one of the better of the like X'd out suggestions that people keep putting X's on because they don't like it. I don't think this is that bad. I think this is actually potentially viable. I just don't like Silent Heart. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I would X this just because I don't want Silent Heart players to become like meta, because Silent Heart isn't the strongest thing ever, but this would definitely make it way better, because this is kind of just like a direct upgrade for Silent Heart regardless of which path you choose, and it also just specializes in things more. So I think this would just be too versatile for Silent Heart. So yeah, let's not do that, because I just don't want to play against Silent Heart players. But honestly, this isn't that bad. This next one is another Silent Heart one. Silent Heart Aura farming update. Don't you guys want to farm Aura in Deepwoken with Silent Heart? Doesn't that sound like so much fun? Anyway, what if Ultra Kill was in Deepwoken? I don't know, man. Silent Heart will now be about farming Aura and playing stylishly. Landing guard breaks combos, staying on your feet instead of holding M1 and doing half a bar per hit. You have a full kit, use it. First thing, the style meter. Silent Heart now gains a style meter. Depending on certain actions, you gain style, which provides a boost at certain style levels. The bar is where the momentum or sovereign bars are in Jet Striker and Blight Surger are. The rank names are optional, which, okay. So at 0% style, you do less than average damage, so 0.9 times damage, and you're gaining less style per second, and you gain less style per second as it goes up to 1%, which 1% difference in style per second. I don't think he did the math on this properly, because that is like negligible. Anyway, 10% style, you do 0.95 damage, 20% style, you do normal damage, 40% style, you do 1.05x damage, oh yeah, and then here's where you start getting buffs. 5% minus tempo decay, which is pretty good. Then at 60% style, you get 1.1x, so 10% more damage, minus 10% tempo decay, plus 10% more mantra resistance, and plus 5% move speed. I'm gonna say this outright. Anything that affects movement speed in game is not good, all right? It's not good. Movement speed is not a healthy stat that you can just freely edit. You can't give too much move speed for certain things. You can't take too much move speed for certain things. There needs to be drawbacks to it. If you're going to say that they gain, how much? What is this? A maximum of plus 10% movement speed, then they should be capped at 90% movement speed when not at 100%, or when they're at 0%, right? That being said, back onto this. It's basically just big buffs, and then at 100%, which you get Cataclysm, you get 15% more damage, minus 20% tempo decay, plus 20% mantra resistance, plus 15% oath resistance, plus 10% physical resistance, plus 15% move speed, and then unlocks Silent Cascade. With that being said, I just don't think this would fit in the game very well. It also wouldn't be a good change for Silent Heart. I feel like Silent Heart would not be made good by this. Like, Silent Heart's just, it's weird, man. I don't know. Vigil Sentinel nerf. So this guy wants to nerf the Vigil Sentinel armor. The best defense is a good offense, some old bum a long time ago. Currently, Vigil Sentinel is an absolute demon of an armor, possessing 30% physical, 30% elemental, 25% wind, 10% shadow, and 10% fire as its resistances, while also possessing possessing possibly the strongest offensive armor talents in the game in the form of Vigil's Grace, which buffs swing speed by 0.02x whilst under a speed boost, and Action Surge, which buffs swing speed by 0.04x whilst Adrenaline Surge is active. Both of these total to a 0.06x swing speed buff. As you might have noticed from that, Vigil Sentinel has above average defensive stats, which is 30% physical and elemental. That is kind of crazy. While also possessing resistances against 3 attunements and possessing an incredibly strong offensive talent pair. Alright, so far he actually does have a good point here, because 30% physical and elemental is definitely above average as far as most of the endgame armors go. Because even on the high end, like, and I mean, I guess it's kind of crazy, the resistances are technically lower than like Ignition Deep Delver, which has like 35 elemental, I think, or 35 physical, and then 30 of the other one, right? So most armors at the endgame are around 35 to 30 or 35-30, and this is 30-30, so it's not that bad as far as resistances go, but those are some pretty strong talents that it has offensively. Right? So this person is saying swing speed and attack speed in Deepwoken and most games is one of the strongest attributes. If an attack is faster than your ability to react or faster than your own attack, then that gives the enemy a huge advantage in matchups, and that's extremely difficult to bridge. Vigil Sentinel swing speed buff is enough to completely negate the swing speed penalty of choosing a certain weapon over another weapon, or massively improve the swing speed of an already good swing speed weapon. Example, Quartz Stone base swing speed is 0.94, but with Adrenaline Surge and Vigil Sentinel, their swing speed spikes to 1x. The exact same as base sword and faster than a sizable amount of medium weapons. Solution options. Remove Action Surge from Vigil Sentinel so you don't get a 70 agility talent for free by crafting an armor with already good stats. 2. Fully delete Vigil's Grace from the game to minimize the amount of things available that allow someone to buff their swing speed. Gut the stats of the armor so it's fully committed to being a glass cannon armor that relies on overwhelming the enemy with attacks and not leaving openings via the buff swing speed that you have. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it needs the nerf. It's not like amazing, it's good, I will say that, it's good, but I feel like what they should do instead of nerfing this is just giving other armors better gimmicks, right? Because most other armors are kind of just stats, while this has its own gimmick with the talents like Vigil's Grace and the Adrenaline Surge and Action Surge, and other armors should have stuff like that. But yeah, with that being said, this isn't even like the best, or at least it's not like the most popular. Isn't like the, what is it called? The Calamariner armor or whatever. Isn't that like the most popular armor in the game right now anyway? And you could just say it's like reverse power creep and Vigil Sentinel's just underrated, but I just don't think it's like the craziest thing ever that this guy's talking about, right? I think it's bad and could use a little bit of a nerf, but realistically, it's really just a necessity to buff other things that aren't as viable. Alright, this is the last one that I wanted to read. I don't know if this one's bad, I'm just going over the ones with X's on them. But yeah, this is the last here. So, nerf the Curse of Repulsion enchant a bit. Ever since this enchant has come out, it's been very controversial and promotes many cheese builds. This enchant has also had many problems with it, including little to no cooldown on successful procs, infinite range, meaning you can send out a ranged move from very far away and still get knocked back if the opponent blocks it. This enchant is currently used by many cheese builds, and it is very hard to try and get close to an opponent who has this enchant, so I'm suggesting a few nerfs to it because of it. More of a cooldown on successful proc. Currently this enchant only has a 2.5 second cooldown after, which is basically nothing and allows for a ton of spam on this enchant, considering the proc chance on this enchant is very high. A higher cooldown would solve both of these issues. And then add a range limit. The enchant has no range limit at all, meaning if you block from afar, you can still knock back the opponent if you have this enchant, and that doesn't seem fair. This is the main reason why it is so hard to actually M1 an opponent with this enchant. Oh, because they could kind of just hold S and spam stuff, and then you're just getting thrown back. The enchant currently works as well in the water, which promotes even more cheese builds and running. Make it not work in the water. Okay, honestly, there's gotta be like more situational changes to this specifically, because this enchant itself isn't a problem, it's more so people abusing the playstyle and running in the water while spamming range stuff. And you can't even like block their range stuff, because if you block like a little range mantra that wouldn't have mattered anyways, you might still get thrown back. So it's really not a problem with the enchant, but how people cheese with the enchant, right? Because people can just go rifle with this, and then you know how it is. It's just lame. So honestly, just make it like different, or honestly just make it not work in water. That could work. Because water really is just the issue with it. It's that you just can't catch people in water who are holding S and running away while spamming crits at you with their rifle. But yeah, this actually isn't that bad of a change, and they should just stop the cheese stuff. I don't even know if this was changed. This is an old suggestion we're reading here. Not a lot of suggestions make it into the suggestions channel, because first of all, you need a certain role to do it, but also people aren't suggesting stuff that much. And now that I'm making these videos, people might be even less likely to suggest stuff because they're gonna get clowned if it's bad. But with that being said, that is the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. But yeah, I'm streaming Minecraft over at twitch.tv/Reaconteur, so go check me out over there if you enjoyed. Hope you all have an amazing day. Shout out to YouTube members. I'm going to do this off the top of my head. Green, Brick, Goobka, High Card, Philip, Wizzy My Tizzy, Fun Guns, Elstern, Flying Noodle 559, Drizzy Drake Fan, Carlia, and Simply Mo. I think I got everyone. If I didn't, I am so absolutely sorry. With that being said, I love you all regardless. Have an amazing day, and goodbye.